Hey, Mark, this is fantastic. I'm learning so much about you, but I haven't learned anything about your past and your sports experience. So like I really want to talk about that and find out like wrestling, one of them.
Yes, yeah. So I also do. I also cover wrestling. I used to cover shows like during the pandemic, but thankfully they moved me on from that because it was torture watching wrestling during the pandemic without a crowd. Um,
Yeah.
so like, I just cover like moments or I talk about injuries, kind of basic stuff. That's another passion of mine that I do. Um, as well as like just kind of like talking about sometimes like I'll do baseball if there's a need for it, and kind of just try to expand more on sports, which it's not too bad. I've talked about some NFL articles, which I'm still learning some of the rules, even though I play fantasy football. So
Well, I'd like to,
yeah,
I'd like to introduce you if we can track down the right people in the organizations that I played for,
yeah.
because I played for five organizations, right?
Yeah, anything to me would be great. It'd be great. Like even just talking hockey, it could be any team. I know my stuff pretty well about it.
Yeah.
So it's something that I just have a good knowledge for.
So I spent time in LA, Buffalo, Edmonton, Vancouver, and with the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Yes.
So that was my journey, and those are the buildings that I'm an alumni member in,
Okay.
and so that gives me sort of hello access. You know what
Like
I mean? Because
yeah.
most of the NHL teams today have built their alumni associations around any former player that lives locally. So a lot of them open the door. Like if I lived in Florida, I would probably be embraced by the alumni there. They've created more of an open door than saying, well, if you're not an alumni of the city but you live here, you can't access, or we can't leverage your position in the community, more like it, right? Because
Right.
we're an asset to, we're sort of the cushion between the players and the community in a way, right? So
Right.
yeah, it's a good space to dig into, because when you start talking to us, what happens is there's a whole bunch of bleed into the NHL, because 70% of the players that stop playing in the NHL, they work for the NHL, and 30% of them want to work for the NHL. So there's 100% of them who are still touching it, and it's a really really hard environment to back away from.
Of course, because it's something that you've played basically your whole life, right? So it's like you can't really leave it. It's hard to leave the game even when you're retired. You just kind of find a way to get back in another way, right?
Yeah, and one of the questions you can ask people, especially young people in the OHL, is what's the plan?
Exactly. What would be the plan? Like, you know, if so a lot of these guys don't get drafted, right? So they'll take like a college route. They go back to
Not
school. They go to
not if
Europe.
though,
Yeah,
but when,
exactly. Oh
right?
yeah.
Because a hundred percent of professional athletes are going to be terminated, and most of them almost instantly.
Yes.
But nobody ever thinks about that,
No,
because
they
there's
don't.
always a young player coming up, so that particular phenomenon, that 100% of them are going to hit the wall,
Yeah.
right? Whether it's psychologically or physically, are going to hit the wall, and they have to become more conscious.
Right. They also that's the thing, right? They need to think about their future too, um, as well, and kind of get an early step ahead of things.
You could be a catalyst for that in the questions, in how you form the questions for them, so that they're positive, but they also linger of, what else are you doing with your life, type of thing.
Yep.
So
Exactly.
when I was in junior, I was the winner of the Bobby Smith Award, which is the academic award for the Ontario Junior Hockey League.
Yes.
So I was busy doing that. In fact, I wasn't even planning to go to the NHL. That was everybody else's plan,
Yes.
right? And I bet you it's the same in the dressing rooms of the teams that you're going into now. It's probably the same type of psychology. There's a lot going on that you don't know about, but if you just start asking the right questions, it's amazing what you'll find out.
Exactly. So I'm gonna look to expand that this year when we my co-host and I do our shows, and we do our the writing aspect of the team, and see what else we can kind of deep dive into some of these players.
Yeah, and who what relatives they have, how is their one of the best subjects that you could cover is the conditioning that's happening,
Yeah, there's a
right?
lot of
Because that gives you access to culture. And
yes,
and and culture is the number one competitive advantage for these teams now.
yes,
And so if we can search for the answers to the questions that reveal the culture that exists, then you're going to be helping everybody within the organization. And people are worried about not having a good culture. Before they were trying to hide their bad culture, right? 20 years ago.
yes.
Now they're worried they don't have a good culture. And so if you sort of wrap culture and supporting junior hockey, and that'd be I think that would be a beautiful thing. It would be like music to their ears because they don't understand it.
Exactly. They're like horses. They're just looking straight. So right now their main goal is just to go to the NHL.
They're just looking straight. You're right. You're right.
So yeah.
Yeah, and,
Uh,
and everybody around them is thinking the same thing.
right. It's who can you can impress, who's watching. You never know. So yeah, those are very good topics to kind of take a look at. I've actually never thought of that. So I like that idea.
Well, it's something that
Yeah.
absolutely for sure they're going to have to go through, which is the change.
Yes.
And if you do it um, in a wise way, they won't notice you're doing it, but you'll just be reminding them that there's something else going on other than chasing a puck around, right?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, it's an important thing. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to take away anything from anybody, but it's important that they're aware, right? That they're because I was completely unaware. If anything would have happened to me in junior or whatever, I got my first retail job. My daughter has a store. I got my first retail job at age 61, which was just last year to help my daughter out by working at her store.
Yeah. And
That's
that
how
was like
little
new to you.
that's how little experience that I have. And it's the same with the guys that are playing. Like their families have committed everything, so they've blocked out sort of what reality is, to the rest of the world.
Right. Well, what was for you? So when you were playing in junior, what was like, what was your plan? Like, what were you thinking about if you weren't thinking about going to the NHL?
Well, I was a math and physics guy. I excelled in academics. So for me, it was one of two or three sports. I was one of these guys who could have done it in lacrosse or skiing or hockey or because I had ADHD, so I was running around like most NHL hockey players. I was running around like crazy guy going from sport to sport, and my parents had to basically guide me and protect me from people who didn't want you to do good,
Right.
and then also from yourself, from jumping first and not checking to see if you have a parachute,
Yeah.
right? And so
Uh,
I just needed to be protected, like and helped. And some people weren't doing that. They were there to take. There's no question.
yeah. It seems like you had good support with it. Um, for yourself as well. Like, I just want to go to the hockey aspect here. So when you were drafted, uh, did it catch you off guard by like how high you went and like you're thinking like, oh, like this is gonna be your career from now on?
No, I had no idea, but it's funny you asked that question. So this is at the draft. There's Dale Howarchuk
Yeah.
and Ferguson giving him his jersey, and there's Doug Smith putting on my jersey because Dale went first and I went second. And you know what, Mark? I have no recollection of being at the draft in my mind. absolutely zero. If you told me I was,
Mhm.
I'd deny it that I was even there. Yet there's pictures of me being there. So it must have been so overwhelming for me that
Yeah.
I just blocked it out. And then the other dangerous trap I fell into was I started to believe that everybody had it as good as I had it.
Mhm.
I thought, it's like, doesn't everybody have it this way? And so I lost sort of my emotional control and got arrogant for periods of time during my career because that I was on my own and to my own device. I was left to my own devices, right?
Yeah, especially being a kid. Technically, yeah, 18, you're still a kid there, right? So
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
going into the adult world, being away from family. You're going to a big city in Los Angeles,
yeah.
and it's a different animal.
Well, even today, that they got to ensure that the support structures are in place. But today, guys like Connor McDavid, when they come into the league, they have like six supporters around them.
Yes.
Where I there was when I was 18 and I went to Los Angeles to play in the Forum, there was zero supporters. I had none. I had nobody. Nobody was supporting me to help me with real estate transactions or legal stuff or where to find like it was like they
Yeah.
just sort of abandoned. If I wasn't at the office, they literally took no responsibility for me.
Yeah. I guess you guys had agents back in your
Yeah, and my
days.
agent was a lawyer, so it was just a transaction, right? And
Yeah.
so so and that's the way it was operating. And now and the only way I got traded from LA was I was asking to be traded from
Mhm.
LA for 2 years.
Yeah.
Finally, I went to Toronto, and I have the newspaper article because I knew in Toronto if I called one of the press members over and told them that I wanted to be traded, that I would finally get traded, and I didn't know it was going to explode.
Yeah.
It made me a pariah, right? Like I was 19 or 20 years old, and I told a reporter in Toronto I wanted to be traded, and all of a sudden they didn't want to play me anymore in LA. They tried to like it was like they tried to destroy me quietly,
Yeah.
right
It got
on the
out.
West Coast.
Yeah, and it's weird that even in today's NHL, like teams still kind of do that essentially with players. They request a trade and they try to like blacklist them from the team.
They too, and what who does that serve? Like really, it's an archaic way of looking at it, right? Like
Yeah,
it's better than it was because today, and I might misunderstand the rules, so correct me, but I can announce that I'm shopping it.
yeah. Well, you're right. Yeah, because player like, it was just with Patrick Laine. He wanted out of
Yeah,
Columbus, and
yeah,
it got out, and apparently he nixed the trade, and then he wanted Montreal, and he got what he wanted.
yeah. Like it took everything and Scotty Bowman to get me out of LA, and then Buffalo, the support became the older players. They had a different culture, and the older
Right.
players supported the younger players, but still no support mechanisms in place. Still, you go figure it out. Still, when you leave the building, you'll figure it out on your own,
Yeah.
right? And today you're seeing a big difference, huh?
Yes, a lot of players they'll either they have the support like with their teammates or family. I believe some players get taken in with other players and they'll stay with them for a year or two until they figure it out.
Hmm. Now, where I wanted to talk to you about who, and I want to write these names down because I believe in manifestation. We use our mind consciously to create things that we want. So, like on the hockey front, or on the sports front, even, who is it that you'd like to have a chance to interview?
That's a tough question. That's a um
Well, that's good. That's what I'm here for, right? And that's what you're here for too, to ask tough questions.
yeah. Um I've got quite a bit. Like obviously like I love to sit down with I'd love to sit down and like I guess Cujo. He was my favorite player growing up for the Leafs. And like I've met him a couple times, but like just to sit and talk about like probably like his career would be nice. Um, as well as I would say like Matt Sundin as well. Like for like hockey wise, I'd love to just have a chat. I think it'd be great to hear these stories that some of these players have from their time of playing and whatnot. And actually, even Alexander McGillney would be a guy I'd like to talk to.
He's not a goalie though. These guys here, I thought you were a goalie. You played goalie, right? And and
Oh, I mean, Cujo is a goalie, so I got one goalie and
yeah,
two
one
players.
goalie, but but you ventured off into forwards, but
Oh, I mean, well, for goal, I must have misheard that actually. Then, so I guess for goalies, I'd say Cujo,
okay.
um, as well as Carey Price is another one of my favorites as well.
Okay. Okay.
Trying to think here, got me on the spot. Huh.
It doesn't have to be a goaltender either, Like I stumble across people all the time from my past and new players too, right? And I
Yeah,
always like to leave them with something or be able to follow up with something. And you might be that person, you know what I mean?
yeah, for sure.
So I'll definitely keep you abreast.
Yeah, I guess trying to think here. Those are the two goalies I'd say, and also Patrick Waugh would be a fun guy. I think he'd be a fun
Okay.
interview.
Yeah. Now,
Um,
tell me about your goaltending experience. Like you were playing goalie in sledge hockey, which is
yeah,
insane.
so I play. I'm a goaltender in sledge hockey. It's A and B level. I started um, September of 2021. I had a friend. He was asking me to um, come play sledge hockey for years, and excuse me, and I never got around to it. I'd always brush it off. I'd say yeah, 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 whatever. Like I'll one day I'll try it out. And then during the pandemic, it was still during the pandemic. I'd say 20, and then in September he's like, hey, we need a goalie. Our guy left. So I went. I spoke to the coach. I told him like I've never really played before, but it seems simple to go in net. Fun fact, it's not simple. So I learned there as the season went on. Um, as the season went on, I um, got more comfortable with it. And my second career game was at our tournament against the Korean national team.
Okay.
So they came down, and it was very very interesting experience. I think before the game, I think our coach was talking to them saying like I wasn't experienced, but my first ever shot I faced against them was a 2-on-0, and
Oh, and
yeah,
Are they more advanced in Asia than we are?
maybe I'm not too sure to be honest with you. Maybe
It
about the
must be. It
same.
must be pretty competitive now,
Yeah,
right?
they
I
have a
mean,
good team. They have a very good
with the
team.
Paralympics and everything, it must be very competitive,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. A lot of teams in sledge hockey are but I'd say about even strength. A lot of good players on each side. And then as years have gone on, I've switched sleds. I was in a cross leg sled, which was tighter on the groin area, so that was hard. So I
Uh,
switched over to a straight leg, and since then, like I can fall, get up. I've been positioning better and getting more comfortable with things like that.
so you're paying for the day. The point is, you're doing something every day. You're moving every day, right? I mean, to
Yeah,
pay for the day, right?
yeah, yeah,
And you're exercising. You're on the move. We want to get that point across to everybody. Me too, man. I'm moving every second. I'll get up from this interview, go do something else. The only time I sit down is really to do this type of thing. And you're probably the same, right?
yeah.
You're
And
moving.
normally I'm playing ball hockey 3 days a week with a group of people, so it's been fun. We just ended our Monday night last night, so the season came
Well,
in for Mondays. And ball hockey's a fun exercise. You feel it the next day in your legs and your back.
yeah. Well, you should feel it. People think that comfort is the path.
Yeah,
The comfort's not the that comfort's the opposite of the path. And
exactly.
and as I age, yeah, I get sore, but every time I feel some soreness, I go, "Oh, okay, that's good. I'm working it, man." And
Yeah.
so
Oh,
that's
I feel it at my age, and I'm like, oh my god, I shouldn't be feeling this right now.
well, you'll keep feeling it the rest of your life if you keep moving. I mean, that's a guarantee. And I appreciate you very much coming on today, Mark.
Thank you for
And
having
I
me.
like, like next time you come on, as you build up your portfolio, maybe we can figure out how we can, share some of your best work so people can see that, what your
Yeah, yeah, for
accomplishment.
sure,
And
for
then
sure.
are you releasing a newsletter? Is there any place that people can tune into you right now, like website, Facebook?
To tune in for my steelhead show with my partner, him and I do it on YouTube.
Okay.
So that's on the YouTube channel on the Gritcast. And we're changing the name of our Steelhead show. So we can't give out too many spoilers yet until we had our first episode, probably a couple weeks when the season comes out. And then for myself, I write for this website called Fired Up Network. So I'm on there.
Well, you know what? I'm a writer too, and I'm happy to come on your show as you get things ramped up. And best of luck with that. And we'll have you on again so that you can give us some of those things, so you can share some of those details. How about that?
Perfect. I'll look forward to that.
All right, man. Well, listen, great to see you, and this is fantastic on the Disability Channel. I'm Doug Smith, reporting from Ottawa, broadcasting from Ottawa with Mark Freitas and the Disability Channel. Keeping up the great work, Mark, and
Thank you.
best of luck getting to the Invictus Games. I think it's going to happen. I got a feeling about this.
Thank you.
All right, have a great day.